Welcome to Life Hacks Beyond Convention with Dee and Sonia. We've got a big wind farm meeting. There's another wind farm being built out here. And so they're having a meeting about job opportunities and subcontractor opportunities and other things next week or the week after. On the 7th, that's the easiest way to say it. That's next Wednesday. Yeah. So, yeah, that's going to be interesting because once again, it's that background in, putting data together, writing, administrative. I don't know whether to, I'll see what sort of jobs, whether I want a job. I don't think I do, to be honest. I really want to work for myself, but
So who's putting the meeting on?
the company, I think the overall company that's building the wind farm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And where are they building it?
Out from Georgetown,
Oh, okay.
sort of through the back of us. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. So
Mm.
do you know how big it's going to be?
No, I'm sure I've heard
Or
three
anything?
times and haven't stored the data.
Yeah, yeah.
Doesn't, yeah,
Has
impact.
there been any community outcry about another wind farm in the area, or is everyone happy about it?
This is the same wind farm we think that was proposed nearly 20 years ago,
Oh,
a
okay.
fair while ago, and we went to meetings and there was some carry on. Um, So not that I know of, because
Mm.
they're in an area where there's a certain pharmacy. The farmers get paid to have them there.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
um, yeah. So it doesn't seem to be. I think we're in such a financial dire strait, especially this year, that any money coming into the area will be good. But I
Mm.
don't see them as a fully positive situation. I see them as a bit of a con because I think they cost as much to produce as they produce or more.
Well, the government subsidise these things so much that it's a false economy, isn't it?
That's right. Absolutely.
Mm,
Mm. And
mm,
then there didn't used to be any way of disposing of them later. They have a certain amount, say 20-year shelf life.
mm,
I know previously farmers have been left with the wind farms to dispose of. And
mm,
and they're massive. The wind turbines are massive and
mm,
they're fiberglass.
mm,
So in some countries they're just digging huge holes. And if one vein is 85 meters long and you've got
mm,
millions of them stacked against each other, imagine the size of the hole.
mm,
It's just another environmental disaster in the making.
mm,
Mm. But I don't know what the answer is.
mm,
Solar can be the same. You know, the panels,
mm,
once they can't work properly, get disposed of, where do they go?
mm,
Yeah. So.
mm. Some people talk about uranium.
Yeah, nuclear. Yeah, they're talking about it again here.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't really understand the science that sits behind the nuclear
Yeah,
energy. What are they? Nuclear electricity production
yeah.
machines?
Mm.
I don't even know what they
I
are.
guess it's nuclear generation.
Oh yeah,
Heat.
that sounds much that
Yeah,
sounds much better.
I guess they create heat or, yeah.
Mm, yeah, I've got no idea.
Mm.
But like there's some people for them and some people against them, and I just don't know enough
Yeah,
to make any sort of informed
and I can see both
comment.
sides. Yeah, both sides of
Mm,
the argument. Um, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I always felt that solar was better, but then when seeing different places where there's big storms gone through solar farms and there's just glass everywhere, well, you can't use that land again. It's like the land down at Virginia and places like that where they had all the glass houses for growing veggies and
oh
had
yeah,
to clean up
yeah,
all the glass. What do you do with that top 6 inches of dirt that's full of
yeah.
glass shards once again? Yeah, so. Yeah, don't know. We'll just have to sit back and watch a little bit. That sounds
Mm,
passive, but the thing is, there's arguments for both sides. So, yeah.
Well, the other thing with all these natural forms of energy is that we are then at the mercy of the weather.
Mm.
Because if there's no sun, there's no solar generation.
Yeah.
If there's no wind, there's no wind turbine
Yeah.
generation.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Mm.
And I was listening, this is a while back now, but they were talking about wherever it was, I can't remember, it was interstate somewhere. They had these wind turbines that were actually in quite reasonable spots. So they must have been up high, maybe close to I don't know where they were. Honestly, just can't remember. But they're talking about then actually transferring that energy and how much every 10 kilometres you'd lose of the energy that you'd produce just by transferring it from one place to another. And that was much more than what I had any idea. Like,
I,
because they were so far away, because these wind turbines were so far and the energy had to go so far, it was just like, well, that doesn't seem particularly
efficient.
helpful, because
Yeah.
by the time it gets where all the I mean, I guess it's good for the people that are close, but the population bases that are close is really, really small. So by the time it gets to the cities, which is where they need it,
Yeah. Yeah.
they'd lost so much of the power.
Yeah. Well, we have sometimes the highest electricity in the world here in South Australia, as
Mm,
far as charging the consumer.
mm.
And I believe, and this may be not be true, but I have been told that the power that's generated or stored over at Jamestown in the big battery they set up actually goes to Canberra. So how much are they?
Wouldn't surprise me, but yeah,
No, it wouldn't surprise me
I
either.
got no idea. Yeah, yeah.
Mm. So yeah, like everything, there's not enough forethought or looking at contingencies when people are planning these things, because I think their brain is, oh, well, if we do it this way, then we'll get this much from the government in this grant. So, yeah.
Well, and the other thing I saw fairly recently, an article where they were talking about we're starting to get so many houses and that with solar generation now that actually a lot of the places that capture that energy are at capacity. And so your energy is not even being stored. I don't know what happens to it, but that was
And,
actually causing problems as well. So,
and they're going to charge you to store to put your energy into the grid.
oh, right. So
That's,
they're not
yeah,
paying us
there's
anymore.
something like
Now they're
that.
going to charge us.
They were going to charge people that they were going to charge people that produce too much, I think. Something like that. So some people have put like, massive
Mm,
mini solar farms on their properties, say, and now
mm,
because they're producing too much, they're going to get taxed or charged for it. And it's like, so that's a disincentive. So I mean, we put one lot on very early and we got a grant for it, but it
mm,
wouldn't have saved us what we spent. And by that time,
mm,
the panels were so bad we had to replace them. So we've
mm,
recently replaced them, and of course
mm,
the prices have gone up. And then yeah, we're dealing with companies that you sign up to, but then a month later they change the plan you're on. So
mm.
yeah, it's all.
Do you know, can you remember what your feed-in tariff is?
I know what it was previously. It was 56 cents. It was that high.
Oh,
It's not that now. I think it's about 8 cents. Yeah.
yeah, I was going to say, because this place hasn't got solar, but the other place did.
Mm.
And my feed-in tariff ranged between 9 cents was the lowest I saw, but
Mm.
13 cents was the highest.
Yeah. No, we got in really early, and so we did
Mm,
quite well. But then I guess the things that you run in your home run better with less power these days in some ways
mm,
too. So, but the panels that we got were just shocking quality, really bad.
mm,
And
yeah.
so we didn't get what we were promised as far as,
Mm,
the return on the investment. And we certainly won't with this lot probably either now. So,
mm,
yeah, and I mean we've tried to be environmental where we can be. We've done rainwater tanks, but I sat down and did the math, and I said, well, we can buy this rainwater tank. we won't get our money back unless we use it for 200 years. So, do we spend the money from an environmental capacity and
mm,
choose to make that decision to move forward for others who live here later, or
mm,
do we do something different? So
mm,
yeah, we did invest. So, well, it's not investment, is it? We spent.
mm,
Yeah.
mm,
Um, so if
mm,
we're having that challenge out rurally, how could someone in the city save money
mm,
having a water tank? Or, and if you're in a small home, certainly there's not enough panels to make a big difference.
mm.
And then if,
That's right.
yeah, so yeah.
Well, my water usage bill came, so that's for 3 months.
Mm.
Well, it was only $29 for the actual water cost.
Okay. Wow.
Now, obviously, uh, what do you call it? You know, the other fees to do with sewage and all of that
Mm.
sort of stuff are on top of that. But yeah, my water usage was $29
Wow.
for a quarter.
Yeah.
So what's that? 30, 60, $120 for a year.
That's, yeah, because it's in a
That takes a
tiny,
really long time to pay for a big
yeah.
water tank, doesn't it?
Yes. Well,
And
that's,
also because the property that I'm on is really small, so
mm.
um,
Where
you
would you put it?
well, yeah, you wouldn't be able to get a big enough water tank to really make much difference anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, because
Mm.
it has to be, yeah, has to be pretty big to be able to sustain your water usage, doesn't it?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Mm,
Well, when we
mm,
were looking at building and stuff like that, we looked at you need to be able to store 2 years of water in this area.
mm,
So you work out your usage and you work out your roof size if and work out
mm,
how many tanks you're
mm,
going to need and or how many tanks are viable because if your roof size isn't large, there's no point because
mm.
you're not going to be able to collect
Enough.
enough
Because you've got
anyway.
all of your shed and space. That's the thing. Rural people often have got the sheds and
Yeah,
everything that
yeah,
makes a huge difference to how much
yeah.
they can collect, doesn't it?
Yes, and that's
Yeah.
that's where we benefit
Mm,
from our really big tank. If I was to build later in life, I would seriously consider going off grid completely.
mm, mm,
And then the whole, solar, battery, water tanks, a whole heap of things come into play. But it's also because the connection of those things, if you're
mm,
on a large blocks or up a road where nobody else is there,
mm,
few thousands and thousands
mm,
of dollars. It
mm,
would
mm,
probably, yeah. So it's
mm,
actually cheaper to go off grid.
mm,
Mm.
mm.
So you just
Yeah,
need
I was
to do
watching
that.
somebody. There was this young man, and he was actually in Oh no, this one might have been Victoria, but he was looking at blocks of land for homesteading. So obviously, here in Australia, the whole homesteading's starting to trend a little bit, and people are
Yes.
wanting to live rurally.
Mm.
Not that in past years we would have called it homesteading. I don't know what we would call it. That's a little like appears to me to be a bit of a American
American, yeah.
term. But
Mm.
anyway, he called it homesteading, whereas we'd probably just say off-grid living, wouldn't
Yeah.
we?
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, so he was going and looking at these different small places with one of them. So his goal was to try and find places that people could start an off-grid living for under 100,000, like for the land,
Yeah.
which is kind of hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he found quite a few, but it was really interesting because then, like one of the blocks that he found, there was a reasonable size. So we're still only looking at maximum of 1 acre. We're not
Yeah.
looking at big things, and some of them were probably more like half-acre
Mm.
blocks. And but there'd be one that might be a little bit more expensive for the land itself. But he said, yeah, but they've got power right to the gate here.
Mm.
So actually, it's not going to cost a lot to connect
Yeah.
to utilities.
Mm.
Whereas quite a few of them, like they might have been, like you might have got 1 or 2 acres for only $60,000,
Mm.
but then it's going to cost you $40,000 to get electricity
Or
because of how
more.
far away it was. Yeah, or
Yeah.
more.
40 is
So,
conservative with a lot of places. They only
yeah,
include 12 meters In South Australia, the overarching yeah, power company only allows for 12 meters. And for
That's if
like,
it comes down your street, though, isn't it?
and if it's across the road, which it is in our
Yeah.
case, because we've got several blocks. Well, I don't know how, like, we could not comfortably connect power and water to our lower blocks um, without a huge cost, and the blocks aren't worth it, probably.
Mm,
So, yeah.
mm. Yeah, it's
Mm.
interesting. Whereas to put in your own, like you said, water and probably solar, I guess, is what
Yeah.
you'd end up putting in, isn't
You'd
it?
have to do
Um,
solar, battery, and a backup
mm,
generator.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Well, and you'd get all of that for 40,000.
Yes, yeah, you could.
Yes.
Yeah,
And then you've got no on, oh, well, you've got ongoing maintenance, but you haven't got ongoing usage costs to the same
no,
degree.
yeah.
Mm.
And the batteries,
Because
they say, need to be replaced every 10 years, but I don't know that there's been enough of them around for them to know that yet. Uh,
mm,
yeah, but we talked to my cousins who've got a couple of stations, and of course they're off grid. They're, hundreds of miles away. Um, but yeah, the batteries are horrendously expensive. So you need to have the
mm.
budget in the background to cover your future costs.
I wouldn't be opposed to that style of living, but just on my own, I just hate having to think about what's the maintenance I need? What do I got
Yeah,
to do? What happens if something goes wrong? Who do I
yeah,
call? How long does it take for him to get here? It just all feels too much.
yep. And then I like that. Who do I call? And hit the subscribe button below if you want to follow life